Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of WP Roundtable. Tonight we have James Dalman on with us, and it's going to be a great one. I'm Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia, and that's it.
Cool, I'll dive in next. My name is Kellen Mace. I'm a freelance web developer on the east side of Michigan. Happy to be on tonight with a great guest.
Awesome. Hey guys, I'm Kyle Maurer. I work at Real Big Marketing. We make websites and plugins with WordPress every day here in Jackson, Michigan. And I'm glad to be here with our very special guest, Mr. James Dalman. We are stoked to have you with us today. James, why don't you say hello real quick and tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do.
My name is James, and I like chocolate, and I like hand grenades. Do you want to play with the hand grenades tonight? Because we can have some fun. Hey everyone, hey, thanks for having me on. You know, you don't know what you're going to get when you got James Dalman on the line, so I am wearing this helmet today because I may throw out some flack and I don't want to get hit back with it. But we're going to have some good time. Appreciate you guys being here. I'm James Dalman, and I am the founder and CEO of Happy Joe Inc., a nonprofit organization that helps military veterans learn how to build successful businesses or careers in WordPress and web tech. Hoo-yah!
Awesome. Thanks, James. It's a real pleasure to have you with us, and we've got a whole lot of questions that we want to go through. We want to talk about you and your design business and your background in WordPress and all the things that are going on, and we're going to definitely talk a lot about Happy Joe because every one of us thinks it's a pretty special thing. We want to get the word out about it. So let's we start off every episode by talking about our quick picks of the week before we get into the questions, learn more about you, James. So I'll tell you first my pick of the week. This week was a fun one for me because I got to dive in for the first time and learn WP CLI, command line interface for WordPress. I've been meaning to get around to using it for a long time, and just finally got around to using it, and I'm wishing I've been using it. I'm wishing I would have started earlier because it's legit. If you're a developer, WP CLI is sweet. Check it out. Easier to get started with than I actually thought it was, which is the story of my development career. So if you're a developer, check out wp-cli.org, and that's my pick of the week. Thanks.
All right, and today I am actually going with Headway chat over in Slack. Apparently, Kyle thinks we all need to be Slackers, and so we've all gotten over on the Slack, and I've joined a couple of the different Slack channels. And Headway, of course, you know, it's probably the member of or the community branch that I'm most connected to outside of this show where you lose your Twitter followers. And so I just wanted to share that. Really cool that we're going to be having a group Slack or a group meeting or something over with Headway. So thought I'd share it. If you're a Headway person, check it out. If you're not, you're missing out, and we'll see you over there.
All right, thanks, Jason. I'll dive in next with my pick of the week. That is a book I've been going through. If you're a web development type individual, this is a good book for just learning how to structure your codes in a way that's really readable and easy for you to understand, but also easy for others to understand when they're reading it, and really easy to troubleshoot and define bugs and for forward and backwards compatibility, and really anything that makes code, you know, differentiates bad code from good code. That's what this book focuses on. It's called Clean Code by Robert C. Martin. It's around $30 on Amazon, and I had a few other developers recommend it to me as, like, you know, required reading if you want to get good. So I decided to dive into it, and all the code examples are in Java, so I thought maybe that would be kind of, you know, not very accessible. You know, if I'm used to PHP and JavaScript and some of the other languages I am, but it's really been kind of a non-issue. You know, the examples he gives are straightforward enough, and the code syntax is similar enough where you can piece together everything that's going on, and I've been gleaning a lot of info from that. It's kind of changed the way I think about how I'm like structuring code I read every day. So highly recommended. Check it out.
Very cool, man. We start talking about code, man. That just kind of scares me because I can't code to save my life. I'm a hacker, so I'm not going to read it because I'll probably not understand it. But I think that's a great recommendation. Hey, so I get to do a pick now. Get to pick my nose. All right, man. So my pick of the week. So here's the deal. I'm going to give a shout out to my good friend Matt Medeiros because he rocks, man. So the Conductor plugin, that thing kicks ass. If you're talking about restructuring your content on your pages or your website, stuff like that, your WordPress website, man, it gives you so much flexibility. And I love how it's been designed to help you put in the content into your pages to make it look awesome. And so I would encourage everyone to check that out and start playing around with it because you can use it on just about I think any WordPress theme. And I shouldn't say anything, but I feel there might be some cool themes coming out in the future that are geared specifically for Conductor plugins. So I would sign up for his newsletter and all that kind of stuff. But it's really cool because for someone like me who's a do-it-yourselfer and can't code, I want to create something or be able to use some plugins or WordPress themes, tools, stuff like that allow me to kind of use that creativity to explore. And Conductor plugin is one of those that just rocks. So check it out if you haven't already. And I'm going to do another one just because it's me and I break the rules and all that stuff. So I want to say check out Render. RenderWP.com because those guys are awesome too, and they're supporting the Happy Joe mission, giving 25% of their proceeds back to helping the mission. But more than that, it's a really cool plugin that does some short code stuff. I've played around with it a little bit. It's definitely saved me some time and energy trying to figure out how to copy and paste code and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. It's a 2-for-1 deal for you guys tonight. So check out both of those, or I'll have to hunt you down and throw a hand grenade in your house.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, James, for those great picks. Those are really, really good suggestions. And for anybody watching, we'll have links to everything that we've all mentioned on the event page today and in the show notes on our website when this is published there at wproundtable.com. All right, so let's dive into the questions because we want to learn about James. That's what we're going to spend the rest of this hour doing. All about what James does and who he is and everything. So, James, you've been on some other shows before. I think there's a lot of people in the community who know who you are and what you do and stuff. And I want to get into some of the deeper stuff, but if you don't mind giving us a little bit of backstory, start out with kind of the short, lightning version of your path to where you are today with your career and and with Happy Joe and everything. Just bring us up to the present with the essential details.
Wow, there's a short lightning version of that, man. Jeez, dude, that's a challenge right there. Man, I told people on a broadcast a while back, I was born in one of those eras where it's kind of cool. I did things the old school way. So, my goal when I was starting out, I was drawn out of the womb. Was someone who was always coloring or drawing pictures, stuff like that. I used to get in trouble all the time in grade school. All my report cards said Jimmy draws in class too much. He's never doing his work. And I had a 4th grade teacher said, Jimmy, you're never going to make anything of your life because you draw in class too much. So I was like, yeah, screw you, teach. I'm gonna prove something to you. So that's kind of was a catalyst for my whole career. I was like, I want to do something with my art. I don't want to be one of those starving artists. There were definitely those years and times where I did starve. But what really transpired was I wanted to go to work for Stan Lee. I wanted to draw Marvel comics and stuff like that because I thought that would be the coolest gig in the world. But then everyone says, hey, get into computer graphics because that's where the money's going to be at. And so I started learning how to do computer graphic stuff. And just kind of through this whole career, I learned how to do mechanical paste ups. I was doing stuff before the days of the computer. I was doing Letraset. That's where you take these little letters that are on a sheet and I guess the best way to describe it is kind of like, one of those tattoos that you lick and you stick on your arm and you rub it and it shows up. But these were letters and you would burnish them on to, mechanical paste ups and stuff like that. Got into the computer age, did graphics, did branding, did sign painting, did embroidery, did T-shirts, all that kind of stuff. And then back in about 2005, started really getting into the web a little bit and got on a platform called Squarespace, started developing websites, then helped launch a company called Church Plant Media, which at the time was, cutting edge and still is. I mean, it's a great company. And we started developing websites for church plants, and everyone's like, you'll never make money at that. You'll never make money off of churches. And I'm like, you know what? My teacher said I'd never make a living. I'm going to prove you wrong, too. So we launched a company. It was hugely successful at the time. We were selling websites for $3,000, $5,000. Couldn't keep up with the demand. And then, as fate would have it, I Left the company, started doing branding, opened a branding firm. Then I ran into Corey Miller of iThemes, and Corey's like, hey, we're doing something cool with WordPress. I'm like, what the hell is WordPress? He's like, hey, you need to dig in this a little more. I'm like, okay. Shut down a business, joined up with iThemes, was the second or third employee with their team. Helped them do business development, create some of the first premium WordPress themes on the planet. Designed them, didn't code. Again, I don't code. I blow stuff up with that. And so then from there, we got webdesign.com, started teaching, all that kind of stuff, left the company, and here I am with Happy Joe. Now I'm helping kind of do the same thing, teaching veterans how they can build a business around WordPress, web design, web development, branding, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's a lightning round, but there's a lot there to pack in. I'm like a pack rat of information.
No, that was good. Can you tell us a little bit about the actual business side of your first business? You say you were doing church websites. How did that go? How did you really get into marketing that niche?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back then, this is a funny story. I never imagined in a million years that I would get into church or become a Christian or any of that kind of stuff. But God kind of just, kind of like the Saul adventure. You're riding along, you're killing Christians, all of a sudden, get smacked, and you're like, whoa, your life changes. And so, I was in some really bad stuff back then. My life got changed, and I ended up in the ministry. So go figure. So I got into youth ministry, became a youth pastor. And then wanted to plant a church. And one of the things, I want to do something cool with the church, because all these old traditional churches that were like so hateful and, I don't know, archaic at the time, I was like, no one really relates to them. So I wanted to do something with like rock and music, instead of using flannel graphs, we wanted to use multimedia. And a church kind of came out about that time called Life Church, and they were doing cutting edge technology and stuff like that. And I said, you know what, there's going to be a market for this stuff, because there's a lot of young people like myself and people who are younger who want great marketing. Why can't you have Starbucks marketing for a church? Who says you have to look outdated and old? And in fact, hopefully Dustin, my buddy who helped start that company, I remember having a conversation with him as a youth pastor. He said, this will never work. He said, we'll never be able to sell these sites. And then a year later, he says, hey, let's start this church plant media thing. And today he still laughs about it. He's like, yeah, I was so wrong about that. So we just, at the time, the web was just coming in, but almost all of the websites were just like butt ugly, horrible, crappy websites. I said, let's do something cool. Let's do something really, that rocks the church world. And people loved the designs. They loved what we were doing, and we started getting out there, and the word just spread like wildfire. I was connected with some church planting groups. They said, hey, we want to do something different. And it just exploded. We were doing websites in Front Page at the time. Poor Dustin, he had like a 3-month backlog building websites on Front Page. I was like selling like crazy. It's like every time I talk to someone, like, yeah, send us the invoice. We're going to pay it. And it just exploded. And today they're doing extremely well. They're the leader in the market. And it just goes to show, if you have a great idea and everyone thinks that you're crazy, don't give up on it, because sometimes that crazy idea is the one that's the gold.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like that whole niche concept, and I've seen a lot of different companies doing churches. Surprisingly, it seems like there's more church niche designers out there than they can shake a stick at.
Yeah, the landscape's changed, and then all of a sudden it exploded. Now it's kind of leveled out and changed. But just like anything, in this industry that we're in, everyone's saying, I don't find any opportunities in WordPress. Well, there's opportunities out there every day. You got to. We have a argument here in our family, is it niche or niche, but whatever you want to call it. You have this niche that you can drill down. There's all these little segments that I think in WordPress people are missing that could be very profitable and awesome business ideas, but you just got to open up your eyes and go for it.
Are you one of those people who works on the cache or cache argument as well?
Yes. I apparently what everyone says animated GIFs, and I've been calling them GIFs for like 10 or 15 years, so apparently I've been wrong, and I was corrected that. I don't really care, like it or love it, whatever.
It's just the opposite, man. You've been right all along. The spec for that format says, like the authors of it said it should be pronounced GIF.
Woo, there we go. See, all those people at the word camps were calling me down off stage.
So everybody's saying GIF because that's what it kind of looks like with the G. We're actually wrong. It was intended in the spec to be GIF, as though it was a J. Is that funny?
Man, all right, man. So I feel kind of smart today. Thanks for that.
Well, you're a smart guy, James.
I think Kellen's the only one that's ever opened the book to check on that.
Yeah. I've heard that.
I just heard it from a developer friend of mine who said, I've been saying it wrong all these years and correcting other people when really I was the one that was incorrect.
Yeah, it's like Oklahoma. You know, my wife makes fun of me because people say tornado and I say tornado. You know, so it's whatever. Tomato, tomato, whatever.
Hey, sometimes this stuff matters. No,
Yeah.
not really. Not really. That's some good backstory, James. Maybe fill us up just to clarify everything. You were making the church websites, doing your own design work, then you did some time with iThemes, and then we're kind of in this period after post iThemes, and talk about like what you're doing now specifically, what your focus is, how your day breaks down, and do you have any involvement in any of those past projects with your previous employers or ventures?
Good questions, man. So yeah, like I spent 2.5 years with iThemes, and that was fantastic. I mean, it's like anything else, when you launch a business, it's really cool and stuff, but then you have your problems and stuff like that. But I want to tell you, that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. People are like, well, why the hell did you leave? And there were things that happened along the way, but everything happens for a reason. And it's really weird because I was like the grandpa in the group because I'm coming into this thing, and I think I was like 10 years older than most people in there. Everyone, I say kids, like I probably call you guys kids. I'm 44 this year, so my perspective in life was a lot different than people who were 18, 19, 20 at the time. So I think that created some friction, but it was an amazing experience. Went back out and started doing freelancing and tried to take on everything. I was like, I'm doing theme customizations, even though I don't know how to code. I could at least customize some themes. Was doing all these different services, branding, logos, graphic design, and it was just killing me. It was really successful. But I'm like, I can't keep up this pace, and I'm really, one of my weaknesses, I'm horrible about delegating, and I'm telling you there, Jason, delegation is a hard thing for me to do because for so long I've done it all myself being a solopreneur, but it's like turning loose to something and hoping someone's going to, do what they need to do. So I basically said, I got to change something about this, and so I just started focusing on WordPress web design. And it just exploded. I was working with Bill Erickson, who's just an amazing Genesis developer. I mean, Bill just kicks butt at what he does. I mean, that guy is so smart and talented. And we started working together on projects, and it exploded. And, that's all I started doing was design, discovery, and design. And then I basically sent it off. And it was amazing. And then over the last year, it kind of started slowing down. But that's about the time where I'm thinking, okay, do I really want to keep doing this all my life? Because it sucks staring at the wall all day long, and not really having interaction with humans and stuff like that. And so I just had this feeling like I needed to build something that was a legacy, something that went outside of what I'd known. And so I had dreamed about launching a team and doing something for a long time. And so it was just like, it's time to do that. And Happy Joe kind of just started taking shape. And, I served, spent time in the military, got a lot of friends who were in the military, got a lot of connections to veterans. And I, seeing people struggle, can't make ends meet, suicides, or 22 suicides a day because they don't have a mission to follow or fulfill, just all these things. I'm like, I can do something about this, And so I started thinking back to my time at iThemes and how people are like, kind of one of the reasons why we started webdesign.com was because I had all these stay-at-home moms and single moms say, how can we make a little extra money? And I was like, well, learn WordPress, learn how to set up these themes and all that kind of stuff, because as much as everyone says it's easy and anyone can do it, there's still people that have problems with it, And so I started thinking, why can't I do the same thing for veterans? And started doing that. And we're actually going to be making some changes soon because I know, reviewed the questions for you guys. You sent them over, but one of the places where we want to go is we're actually going to start offering services through Happy Joe. So we're going to start using those services as a way to fund what we're doing. We've got some great veterans in our group right now. We've got some military spouses and caregivers who have all these amazing skills, but like most freelancers who might be listening to this podcast or this show, have a hard time going out there and making the money, selling their services for what they're worth and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, we could do this with Happy Joe, and we'll bring in, a team and start doing these projects and be able to be self-sustaining. Because, honestly, I hate, begging people for money all the time, and I know it's hard. There's all these great things to give to. Some people don't have it. So I'm like, we could do something awesome. We can make a living for ourselves, and then we'll do the training and education as WP Boot Camp, and do everything through that. Happy Joe will actually be the services side. So we're kind of making some transitions because we want to make a bigger impact than just saying, we can do a little bit of training and all that. We want to say, look, we can do the training, but if you need these projects done, we've got the team who can do it. And there's a lot of people right now who don't want to mess with projects anymore, services work. I keep hearing everyone say, we want to get into the product side, which, is great, because that's going to give us a lot more money and clients. But, the thing is, there's a problem with products too. So I guess it's just dependent on what side of the fence you're standing on. But we'll continue to do services because, there's always going to be a need for it.
Well, I know I've heard you talk about it before, but as you may or may not know, I was an underwater basket weaver in the Army. And,
yes.
So I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you did.
You took my thing, man, because I did underwater, basket weaving. I got nothing, man. So wow. I was 11 Bravo. That was my MOS, military occupational specialty. Basically, I trained kill people. That's all I did, kill people.
Come on, man, you gotta get more specific than that. I met 11 Bravo one time. I want details. Were you a mech? Were you? I guess you were.
I was just what they call a legs. I'm the guy that runs off the boat on the beach, and boom, you get shot, and you become one of those numbers. So yeah, what's strange is when I was a kid, I was really into Rambo and GI Joe and all that kind of stuff. So ever since I was a kid, I'm not kidding. People think I lie about this, but this is the God honest truth. I was the most well supplied kid with weapons as a child. I mean, you think about ISIS right now, and these kids have weapons. I'm walking around like I got fake grenades attached, web gear, and I've got bayonets and Rambo knives, ninja throwing stars, and that's what I did, man. I went outside and played like I was a mercenary, and then I started, equipping all my cousins because we had like so much family that lived on the block, so we built this like small army, and we played war all the time. And my dad was in the military, and he kept telling me, he's like, son, don't ever go in the Army, go in the Air Force or Navy. And I'm like, I'm too stupid, dude. I did the ASVAB test, and I hate taking tests, so I just colored in the dots. So they basically said, you can be infantry, you can be a cook, or you can do trash. And I'm like, well, I always wanted to blow stuff up anyway, so I'll do the infantry. Honestly, I've written posts about this before. I don't, people are like, well, thank you for your service, you're a hero. And there's a lot of times I really don't feel that because I really didn't do anything. I joined the Oklahoma National Guard and then switched to reserve. The first time I tried to go in the military, that was a fiasco. I wanted to go airborne. It didn't happen. But the time that I went in, I was 26 years old and already had kids, so I'm like, I'm just going to do this part-time. And so I did the infantry thing, and, the craziest thing I did is, I got to fly in on some Black Hawks, in a Black Hawk we were doing like Apocalypse Now or whatever, where they're flying over the river and playing the psyops and all kind of stuff. So we did something like that here in Oklahoma, landed in a cow field in Minko, Oklahoma, and I got to guard cows all weekend long. That was so awesome. And then we got picked up by the Whirly Bird Chinook and, whisked away. So, that's about the extent of it. I should get a Purple Heart for saving, our cattle from mad cow disease, but, I didn't do anything really cool, I got hit with a piece of shrapnel on my leg one time because people were throwing hand grenades and stuff like that, and it landed on my leg, and I started screaming, and everyone thought I was dying, but, the thing is, it really did hit me, but it flew like, 100 yards up over this thing and just kind of landed on me, but I thought that was a cool story, so that's it, man. I really didn't do anything high speed, I drank a lot of beer and, pissed off a lot of people. I almost got court-martialed for... I'll tell you this story. I don't want to keep rambling on. So we had a camouflage class one weekend, and I thought it would be cool to paint my face like Gene Simmons because I like Kiss, So I sit there and I spend like an hour and a half doing my face up, make it look like Gene Simmons, and I come out, and you think I would have shot the colonel. So I got ripped. They're like, man, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. You're going to get court-martialed. You're going to get us all smoked and in trouble, and just made me feel like an asshole. So I went back in there, and I'm like, okay, I'll change it up. So I went in there, and I redid all my camouflage makeup, and I did a little Hitler mustache, and part of my hair came out and looked like Hitler. And ooh, yeah, don't do that. So there you go. That's my military stuff.
Thanks for sharing that, James. That's some really good stuff. I appreciate all that.
Yeah, man. You heard it first on WP Roundtable.
Yeah. That's what we love. We love hearing stuff first. So kind of on that note, I want to move into because we've only got so much time, we want to dive in deep. I want to talk about Happy Joe a little bit, and we've got a whole bunch that we want to ask you about. So I was wondering if you could take a minute, and we've talked a little bit about it, but not in too much detail about what Happy Joe is. So maybe you could take just a second to describe, for anybody watching who doesn't know what Happy Joe is, describe it just a little bit, get everybody caught up to speed, and then I was hoping you could kind of do a state of the Happy Joe address briefly and give us an idea of where Happy Joe is today. What's the status of this organization that you're running? And then we're going to move into some other questions.
Okay, awesome. So I'll save people a lot of time, and I'll say go to happyjoe.org and look at the blog, and you can read some of the updates there because there's some stats and figures and stuff like that that you need to know and understand. You can also see some of that on wpbootcamp.org. So basically, long story short is, I launched this thing to help train, educate, and mentor military veterans, military spouses, and military caregivers on how to launch successful businesses, particularly in web technology. When we launched out, we basically have 24 veterans right now who have applied for our program, and they get ongoing coaching and mentoring. Some of them already have skills in WordPress, some of them are developers, some of them are designers, illustrators, and we have people who are brand new to this whole thing called WordPress and web technology. And so our goal is to find people who, it's not all about the talent, it's about the drive and the passion to do something. We've got a lot of homeless veterans, we've got veterans who are struggling to make ends meet, so I said, hey, we can teach you something that will get you a job, get you some way to make some money, and have a mission in life. And so that's what we started out on. And what we started figuring out was that we were originally going after people who were just coming out of the military service, but that's kind of not been, as fruitful as people who've been out of the service for a year or two, maybe 5 years, even 10 years. People, men and women who've come out and said, you know what, we didn't know what we wanted to do when we got out of the service. We've been trying this thing, called business and all that kind of stuff, and so we just need some help getting going. So we're really working with people who have already, started their business, a few people who are wanting to launch out, and just giving them that, that pathway to help them, find success. Right now, some of the biggest challenges, to be honest with you, you bring that up, the state of the Happy Joe, organization is we need money. We're a nonprofit organization. Unless we don't, unless we get money, we're going to have to shut down. That's what I wrote down in some of these posts. We're doing this great mission. We've got a lot of people in WordPress and the community and technology and friends and colleagues who say, hey, we want to help veterans. We think this is a great cause. We want to do something awesome. But, there's been very few people who have given to this mission. And I take that back. There's been some great people giving to this, but we need some real money to make this thing go around. And so, like I said earlier, I hate begging for money. The tough challenge is a nonprofit. You have to be the fundraiser. You have to ask for funds. But that's really what we need to get going. We've got opportunities out the yin yang to help people. We've got veterans, and this is all word of mouth too. We haven't gone out there and advertised and stuff like that, and it's just growing and growing and growing and escalating. We got veterans sharing their stories and what's going on. So we've got this really huge interest, but we really need to get to that next level to where we can actually do what we need to do. And I jumped in this thing all in faith. I don't pull a salary right now. Sometimes I get paid, sometimes I don't. Right now we're looking at one of the reasons why we got to do services is we got to make a living, either that or I got to go get a job, or I need to send out my resume to 10up or Web Dev Studios or iThemes again or something like that. But that's just a reality situation. We've got this awesome mission. We're starting to make a real big impact. We've made some inroads with the military community, but we're kind of being held back because we need that funding. And but hell or high water, I'm going to continue to do this. Doesn't matter if I'm doing it full-time, part-time, whatever. I made a decision, when I launched out, that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, and it will be a success. It might take, 2 years to get there. It might take 20, but, it's going to work.
Cool. Thanks a lot, James. I have a question for you about just your personal, site and services that you offer there in comparison to Happy Joe. Are you kind of splitting your time between those, doing work of your own and also for Happy Joe, or have you jumped ship to Happy Joe kind of fully at this point?
That's a good question. So, end of last year, I said I'm going to kind of shut down my freelance business and I'll keep working for some of my existing clients and start focusing on Happy Joe. And we really weren't going to do services at Happy Joe at that point, but now it makes sense to say why not. So I'm going to take everything that's over at James Dalman and funnel it over to Happy Joe and lead the mission. So we've got a lot of great potential workers and contractors and team members and stuff like that. I want to go out there and build the vision and go out there and get the work and connect with clients, which is what I love to do and I'm great at, and start bringing the work in and be able to provide a living for myself and some other people that way. Because if we keep getting donations, great. That's awesome. If there are people who want to give tonight, want to go check out our sponsorships or partnerships and stuff like that, that's great. But again, we want to kind of wrap it all up because I feel like we can do really well at the services side of things. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
yeah, no, it sure does. Yep. So I was taking a look myself at wpbootcamp.org, and it sounds really cool. A lot of the training and mentorship, etc. Mentioned there. I'm just wondering why that was. Is that kind of spin off or kind of an offshoot of Happy Joe? Like, why not keep everything in the same site? Is it kind of a separate idea or mission behind the training arm of it?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I did that is we didn't have WPBootcamp.org or .com originally, and Benjamin Bradley, who's a team member over at iThemes, had the domain names, and he donated them to us a couple of weeks ago. We ended up just trying to come up with an event we did in San Antonio about a month ago, and we just called it WP Bootcamp because I thought that would be cool. And he's like, hey, you want the domain name? It's like, hell yeah, that's a great, because the military people relate to that and the basic training and everything. That's really what we're about, is basic training. So, Happy Joe long term, we're focused on WordPress and web tech, but I have a big vision of where I want to go in 20 years from now, and it's not always going to be web tech. So one of the reasons why I broke that out is say WP Bootcamp can have such a meaning just with the military community and people in general, but it could be a standalone. It's still a Happy Joe brand. It's all under Happy Joe. But to build a community up on a different site, one, it keeps everything separate, which is nice, because you should add membership and all that kind of stuff to your site, it crashes. But because, we want to focus on the services side with Happy Joe under that name, and then the training, it just made sense to do that. And people said, we love the name. And one of the biggest reasons is I want to get people in the WordPress community behind us. So, we always talk about open source and helping each other and, raising a tribe or a team together. And so I don't want this to all just be about Happy Joe. I mean, it is a Happy Joe thing, but I'd love to see people in the WordPress communities come alongside and say, look, we want to help, because here's the thing. Maybe you're helping veterans or their spouses right now, but if you think about it, it could benefit your own business as well, because, I've talked with people, went to a Prestige conference last weekend, and I met people who aren't, military veterans or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you know someone who does development, design, illustration? Yeah. So by bringing the two together, I think we present the world with some options to say, you guys could team up together and do something awesome together. And so we kind of wanted to just make it a separate community and make it easier so people can all engage with it.
Very cool. So out of the 6 of you on the Happy Joe team, what do you spend most of your time doing as founder and CEO for Happy Joe?
Oh, man. I do it all. Fundraising, take out the trash. I do some design. Again, my weakness is delegating. Everyone on our team right now has a full-time job or a full-time mission. Kiko Duran, awesome. He's doing a Prestige conference, has his own business. He helps out as needed. So, at some point he's going to step in. He'll do some different things. We have Jeremy Bay, who's just a phenomenal guy. He's more of an advisor role, board director. Patty Catter, who just came on, she's actually a caregiver. She takes care of her husband who was wounded in Iraq. She's done it for 8 years, and she's involved in nonprofit. So, we really don't have anyone else who can step in that full-time capacity. So we're just trying to equip everyone. My thing was like, I don't want to try to fit a square peg in a round hole or whatever. So I told people, if you have a passion and interest in this, let's get you going slowly, and then let you kind of build out where you feel like you fit in. Because last thing, if you suck at administration, I'm not going to say, hey, be an administrator. If you like to speak, we want to equip you to speak. If you want to do fundraising, we want to equip you to fundraise. So out of all the people that are listed on our team, they all help out in different capacities, but it's, a few hours here and there each month right now.
That's very cool.
James, you've talked before about how a lot of people have come out to verbally pat you on the back and encourage you and tell you they support you and that they support this cause and that they want to find a way to help out. Talk a little bit about how people can help out, and maybe comment on that gap that you've experienced between all of the verbal pats on the back and the actual follow-through support that you've been receiving, and then tell us a little bit about what Happy Joe will need to succeed in the future.
Man, I appreciate that. We talked about that before the broadcast, and I'm gonna take off the gloves here, and I told people I'd be brutally honest and stuff on this, and I don't want to offend anyone. So if you get offended easily, you might want to leave the broadcast right now. But I'm just gonna be honest with you. So hopefully you guys appreciate that and hear my heart. So I've had a lot of people step up and say, what, we love Happy Joe, we love what you're doing, we want to support it. We've had people say, we want to help fund this, we're going to give money to it, and then never hear from them. We've had people, actually, we did our first event, we had a company who was going to help us do the training, and they backed out 7 days before the event, and so we were kind of screwed at that point, and had another person who was going to present back out 2 hours beforehand for circumstances that were understandable good, but it's like, we need people to follow through on our commitment. So, a pat on the back's great, but what I've been telling people is, look, if you don't believe in this mission and you don't want to support it, don't say anything. If you don't want to fund it or help out or whatever, just say no, thank you. It's okay to say you're not interested. It's okay to say no, but by golly, if you're going to say, we want to be involved with this, then follow through with it. And I hate to say this, but there's people who say, we don't have really a whole lot of money right now, or the funds of our company. And I'm going to beg to differ with some people, because I've been to some conferences over the last several months, and the amount of money that people spend on booze alone, and I don't mean to call you out, I like to drink a good beer like everyone else. I've seen a lot of money spent on booze and extravagant stuff and all that, and you're telling me you can't help fund something that's going to leave a legacy. So, again, I'm not trying to tell people what to do with their money. You can do whatever you want. You've earned it. I mean, give it to the, Sarah McLachlan and the dogs, or to the hungry kid in Africa, or put it in your pocket, or whatever. So, but it's when you're coming up to someone and you're saying, man, we love you and we support veterans. We're so thankful for our freedom, but we're not going to give a damn dollar to you to help your cause. That's what irritates me. And so, we all have our freedoms to drink our expensive lattes and enjoy our Apple Watches, and to, do all these kind of things, have great coffee, all that kind of stuff every day. And to be honest with you, we wouldn't have these freedoms if it weren't for the sacrifices of our veterans. And so I'm like, okay, I did that one-up challenge thing, didn't really get any feedback. I'm like, how cool would it be if just every person gave $1, one freaking dollar? I mean, that's not a lot, right? But if you get 100,000 people to give $1, you just funded this nonprofit for a year. We can go out there and do training. We can help a lot of veterans. We can provide their supplies. If everyone gave 1% of their sales for a month or a year or whatever, imagine that. I mean, like, Renter WP is like, here you are, you guys are launching a new company who hasn't even been profitable yet, and you come out with, I'm going to say balls to the wall and say, we're going to give 25% to this thing. And I'm like, that's freaking cool. Why don't more people do that? Because you have the capability. And so that's where my frustration comes from. If you're going to promise and tell people you want to support them, then follow up and do it. If not, that's okay. That's cool, but just don't say anything. So that's my soapbox. Maybe I should step down now. It's all quiet. Everyone's like, oh, crap. We just lost all our viewers.
No, working out a feedback issue here. So you did kind of go into, what you've been experiencing there. Can you tell us exactly what you're going to, what it is actually going to need? Is it a monetary commitment? You talked about $1 or 1%, anything like that. But what would you need at current rate of growth or whatever for you? What do you need for your fiscal year 2015?
Yeah, so I set the goal the other day, especially with WPBootcamp.org. We got, if you go on the bottom tab, there's, partners and stuff like that. So we got these new levels. So I'm looking for basically enough people to say we can fund, we've set up 8 events, and we're talking with some people about free venues. We got some venue spaces donated, so that's awesome. That's in the works. But, basically I'm trying to raise, a minimum of $60,000, which would basically cover my salary and some of the stuff that we need to do. If we do more than that, great, but that's going to get us, that's our goals, our target is a minimum of $60,000 for this year. If we can do $100,000, that's great. But we're just looking for people to say, you know what, we want to sponsor this and be a part of this. And, if you go to the website, you can see there's different ways on there. We got, the hero level, which is, I think, is $10,000. But, for the boot camps, everyone's like, that's a lot of money. But think about this. If you join up for that level, if we do 8 events, you're going to get promotion all those 8 events. So, I know people are sponsoring WordCamps and Prestige conferences and stuff like that, Loop conference, all great conferences, all need the help, all need sponsors. You should give to them. But, sometimes you're spending, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for one event, for one little space. Well, $10,000 is going to get you home much more, because you're going to be promoted to 8 events, plus you're going to be on, the recordings, all this kind of stuff, and you're going to reach an entirely new audience than some of the people at WordCamps. Because, one of the things that I've told some of the hosting companies, like, you got 7 hosting companies at WordCamps sitting right next to each other. I'm like, this is great. You're building inroads with the community, and you're telling people you support them, but man, just think if you were the only hosting company at this event with the military veterans, they're going to say, hey, these are the people we need to host with. So we're trying to take a different approach and say, look, fund this. And the thing is, we want people mission we're giving. There's been some amazing people who've donated money and said, look, we don't care if we get anything out of this. We believe in a mission. And thank all of you for all of you who have done that. That's awesome. But we also want to say, how do we help you succeed by partnering with us. So, we've had conversations with the company. I said, look, I want people signing up for your services. I want them to know about your plugin or your themes, stuff like that. I want them to financially support you in return, because if we help you build your business and you're successful, you're going to want to help us back in return. I don't expect everyone to go broke and to be out of business helping a nonprofit. That's stupid. But how can we find ways to work together to where we can all benefit? So that's kind of what I'm trying now to say. We're partnering together to make something great for all of us, not just, one small segment.
I'm going to call you out here for a minute.
Oh, crap.
About a month ago, we spoke, and you promised me you'd have me banners to put on our website and promote you.
Is that still on my list there? Probably so. Yes. Again, bad at delegating and following through on a small thing. So, thank goodness I've got someone to step in and help me to be a project manager now who can crack the whip and bust my balls and say, get it done. So I owe you. I will do 20 push-ups or something like that at the end of this broadcast.
All right. Sounds great.
If I could do 20 push-ups.
Actually, I think they need to be done during the broadcast. I mean, video and all.
Yeah, but you won't see me, so I guess I could cheat,
No, put the camera down. I want to be able to see the push-ups. I want to make sure you're breaking the plane.
That might be ugly, man. I'm not wearing any pants, so we'll just wait till the end.
Okay, then.
So, James, we've got some excited viewers, Kate and Topher DeRocha, who want to know a little bit more about your specific plan. What are you doing in 2015? What's on the agenda? Do you have events? Do you have some specific plans of action? What are you doing to make Happy Joe keep going? Like, make this a reality, make it a success. What can you tell us? What can we count on happening this year? And how can we help out with any of these?
Man, excellent. Thanks for the question. I love that. That's awesome. So basically, we just launched WPBootcamp.org over last weekend, and we've got live events lasted. And I'm going to pull this up because I can't remember all the dates. So we're in talks with a couple different companies right now. So originally, we were just going to do 1 or 2 events, and then I had some people say, you know what, why don't you do some events across the United States, because it's really difficult for some people to travel across the U.S. and stuff like that. And then I said, why don't we take it up another notch and build a community, because we can do training and mentoring and webinars and all this cool stuff online. So, the goal was, because everything is foundational on WordPress right now and what we're trying to teach, WP Bootcamp is the centerpiece of that. So we're opening up. We just did our beta launch. It's by VIP invitation right now only, because we're trying to test out the new Rainmaker system, which thanks to Copyblogger and Brian Garner for donating to us. That's awesome. And we just launched it, so we're testing it out, getting the content on there. So we're going to start delivering content and basically say, here's a course on how to start building your business. So we have 8 live events as what we've scheduled. We got Phoenix, Arizona, Sunnyvale, California, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Tampa, Las Vegas, Austin, and Fayetteville, North Carolina. And the dates are tentative right now. Actually, 2 of them are confirmed. So if you go to WPBootcamp.org events, it'll give you the down low on what's happening in the training, the tracks. We're going to do a WordPress track and a business track, because some people just want to learn WordPress and they're new to it. And then we have a crap load of people who want to know how to build a business. And here's what we're going to do that's kind of cool. So many people in the WordPress community are having problems building their own business. So we're going to invite people who aren't veterans into the WP Bootcamp to participate on the business track side of things, because we want you to meet veterans who are looking for help, and you can be looking for help for your business. And we'll say, look, come and join us. We'll have some great beer, some great food. It'll be a day of training. And we're going to talk about, everything from how to build your brand, how to make money, how to charge for your services, how to find the opportunities, all that kind of stuff. So everything's hinging on WP Bootcamp right now to start building. In the future, within the next week or 2, we'll open up the website for the services. We've got 4 or 5 companies that said, look, we'd love to send you work. So we're going to do that. So our biggest thing right now for 2015 is to get the services side going so we could be self-funding. And then keep going out there and doing these boot camps and the training online. And I think that's just going to be amazing. We've got military bases right now who are asking us for the training, but we have to wait until we're ready to have all systems in place. Otherwise, we'll crash it all and we'll burn, and that's a bad thing too. So,
well, if you get November confirmed there in Fayetteville, let me know. It might be a good excuse to go see the family. They've been complaining that I haven't made it back for years, so might be a good excuse to go back to the States for a while.
There you go. Well, if we find a venue, we'll definitely have to. And I hear it's a strong military community, so that's one of the reasons why we chose that location.
Oh, yeah.
So questions, people ask questions, man. I ask some hard questions too. Make me uncomfortable.
All right.
I know you guys on here probably have some, but
Yeah, we're getting all kind of we've got all kinds of questions that we wanna know more about. I always love hearing you talk about the future of Happy Joe, for sure. That's always really, really interesting because I know you've got some big ideas. So you've kind of alluded to already about how some things could turn out, and I'm curious about like what you think would have to happen for like your big dreams to come true, for like your ultimate vision. What are you counting on? What's required for that to ever become a reality?
wow. To be honest, it's already a reality, and I'm totally stoked and excited where it is because a year ago I didn't know if this thing would fly, and we had we did a couple of crowdfunding kind of campaigns that helped us pay for the nonprofit status and get started with some stuff and decided us to go to some of these conferences. So it's already exceeded my expectations. When you have just a kernel of an idea, like something as small as a mustard seed, and it starts growing, I'm excited. There's a lot of people who are excited about this. It's helped veterans already. So, in that sense, I couldn't be more pleased. The funding is really what's stopping us because the thing is I want to dedicate all my time every day to this 100%, and I did in the very beginning, and now I'm trying to hunt down some work and get some projects and stuff like that. But if I'm sitting there doing all the freelancing work again, that means I've got to put things on the side, which I'm totally open to. I mean, I work good 14, 16 hour days anyways. But because I feel like we can make such a global impact, and we can make an impact faster by getting some money in here. We got team members, we got people now who stepped up. I talked to someone today, says we got like a dozen people who want, or developers that want to mentor veterans in the Austin, Texas area. So if they're local, they want to help out. So I'm like, all these things keep happening. It's like, man, if I could just dedicate my attention on this fully, it's going to be dramatically different in 6 months. So it's just kind of getting that assurance, that I can keep doing this for the next 6 months. But again, I'm gonna do it whether I'm getting paid or not. I don't care. I might have to jingle jangle on the corner with my can and say, homeless vet and all that kind of stuff to get a few dollars. But I don't know if that answers your question or not. I'm just excited that it's going where it's going.
You go ahead.
I was going to say that's one of the reasons I really like what you're doing, and one of the reasons I reached out to you a month or two ago, see how I can work with you, because you're not. There's just a lot of people out there who are pretty much encouraging people to sit out there with their coffee can and say, change for a homeless vet. And I really, really appreciate the fact that you're telling vets to get out there and you're trying to help them get out there and get established and do something rather than giving them, not that, it's too bad at this point, but there's a lot of people out there that feel like they deserve to just sit on a corner and shake a can and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. And so I really appreciate what you're doing there with that.
Well, I appreciate that. And, that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the biggest myths about veterans. One of them is like they all want a handout, and that's just not true, And even with myself, I have enough pride. That's why I hate, I don't know why I decided to do a nonprofit, because you got to ask for money. Because I feel like I could do something myself. And most veterans I've talked with are like, we're not asking for a handout. We're just asking for a hand up. They're just looking for some opportunity. They're looking for some training. They're looking for some guidance to get that step. And they'll work hard. That's the thing is most of the veterans who apply for our program have all seen combat. They've all been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, and, they've seen the crap. So it's not like, they're sitting back and saying, just give us what we deserve. It's not that at all. There are veterans out there who don't want to do a damn thing for themselves, and that's not the people we want to work with, because it's just like anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're a veteran or not. Some people just don't want to work for a living. They don't want to put in the time and energy. But everyone that's come to our program is like, we'll do whatever it takes. We have one female. Her name's Christina, and she's just amazing. I'm going to share her story, and I know she won't mind me sharing this. She is a stay-at-home mom right now. She's going to a web developer boot camp. She's learning online courses. She just had a baby. She's got 4 or 5 kids. Her husband's working 2 jobs. He's a veteran. And she's like, you know what? I am going to do everything I can to get out of the ghetto and get out of the situation and improve. And you know what? She is hungry. And I'm like, I'm trying to get her work. I'm trying to find her, some work that's online, because she doesn't have all the skills in the world, but she has the passion and heart. She goes, you know what? I could sit here and complain about my situation and go down there and get a handout, but I'm not. I'm going to bust ass. I'm going to make something in my life. And I'm like, that's cool, because there's a lot of veterans who want to do that. And it's just like saying, how can we help these people who are motivated to get to that next level? I mean, we've all been in that situation in our business or life where, we just need a little, love or, guidance or coaching or something.
It's so cool, James. Hearing you talk about this, I'm thinking about, all the vets who you're going to be, teaching and mentoring and teaching kind of a better way to, earn money for themselves or maybe better their situation. And that got me thinking about, some of the different disciplines. You mentioned if they want to become a competent developer or designer or, web strategist or whatever else. So that got me thinking about organizing teams and things like that. So for these folks, do you and Happy Joe as a whole, do you have a vision to kind of help these people, I guess, partner with one another and organize them into teams, of businesses like that? Or do you have some, programs to try to place them with, other established agencies and employers that may be out there?
Yes and yes. So, we are developing teams. One of the things that I want to do is, at some point, I'd love to hire people, full-time, be a part of the Happy Joe team. You're an actual employee of what we're doing. Not there yet, so everyone's going to be a contractor. But what we're trying to do is say, okay, we're going to go out there and try to win work. We're going to help you do some work. We'll make our percentage off of it. But we'll be able to provide a living and feed them and their families right now. They can still operate their own business. They can be autonomous. In fact, most of them want to have their own business. And they're like, we'd love to do contract work. In fact, most people in our industry would rather sit behind the computer and do the work all day. They don't want to deal with the contracts and the invoicing, the business side. I want to do that and bring on some people who can help with that. And then they can work with each other. We have developers who are connecting with designers saying, hey, let's work together on projects. They don't even have to go through Happy Joe. They can do it themselves. So we introduce them into the community. But we also have people who say, look, we're looking to join a company like 10up or Web Dev Studios or iThemes or Copyblogger or, any one of the other great agencies out there or whatever, Pippin's plugins, things like that. Great, we want to hook you up. If that's what you're called to do and you want that 9-to-5 or remote job or whatever, but you want to work with the company, we're trying to connect people. Right now we've got about 3 or 4 people we're getting ready to present to 10up for potential employees for hires and stuff like that, and they're floored. And I'm like, let's connect them and be a bridge between the two and see if we can get them some work. So yes, we're trying to do a little bit of both. We were going to focus more on job placement, but because we're running into more people who want to actually just have their own business, even if it's a contractor basis, we're focusing on that. If they want a job, man, we'll hook you guys up and introduce you to them or anyone else on this broadcast and see if we can get you an employee and a great team member, because they're all squared away people.
I love that. That's really cool that you're doing that, and that there's so many, because there are so many different ways that you can help these veterans in whatever direction is best for them and their family. So we're getting near the end, and so I'm going to move into some of the final wrap-up questions that I've got. So James, you've got a pretty great skill set as a designer and a lot of experience doing stuff for the web. I want you to talk just briefly about what is the perfect situation where someone should consider contacting you about a project? What are you guaranteed to hit a home run in? Where does your skill set fit in? When should someone hire James Dalman?
If they want to hire James Dalman individually, branding, design, and illustration. That's what I excel at. You need to develop a brand that tells a story. I can do it. If you want a design that generates better conversions, I can do that. And if you want some cool illustration work, a sketch note or a gravatar or something, man, I've been drawing since I was out of the womb. So, those are my specialties. I actually love working with clients. Discovery is, I don't know if that's a skill set that people look at, but I have this uncanny ability to connect with clients and paint this big picture and then speak the language of everyone. So I can talk to the developer and say this is what they need and it makes sense. I can talk to the designer and it makes sense, or to anyone involved in the process. So that's that, and those are the 3 best ones, And I can weave baskets underwater, but probably not as good as Jason.
So similarly for Happy Joe, talk a little bit about who you would really, really love to have contacting you. So for anybody watching who might have a connection, a contact, or they themselves have something, who would you love to be getting an email in your inbox from tomorrow? This could be companies who want to donate. This could be veterans themselves, developers who want to chip in, people who want to sponsor events or help out in any way, or specific companies that you want a connection with. who would you really, really most love to be contacted by?
All the above. No, man. So, as we launch our site to the services, we're going to look for people who we don't want to do the high-end big projects like, 10 up would be doing, the, $50,000, $60,000 projects. We're looking for the small turnaround projects, the stuff that a lot of people don't want to do anymore. Set up the WordPress installs, customize some themes, do some custom projects. So, if you're looking at, even if you have a business that does that and you're like, man, we can't find anyone that can do this, we'll do contract work for you and we'll have, rates for agencies. If you're a business or nonprofit looking for someone to launch a website or help you with a logo, contact us. Just reach out to james@happyjoe.org right now. We'll have the website up next week. If you want to get involved with WPBootcamp.org, man, just go to the website and see what we're about, and then hit us through our contact form. I mean, you could be a sponsor. We're looking for people who can teach. We're looking for people who want to mentor other veterans. So, there's really all these needs. So, again, we have the training and education side that people can be involved with, or if you want to send us work on, the agency level, we can do it for you. And we've got talented people. It's not like we're just a startup and we got like 3 people who just learned WordPress. We have people who are proven in this industry who are part of this team and we could do higher end work. We could do $100,000 projects. I just don't want to do them because, there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through with that, which we didn't talk about WordPress business stuff. But anyways, there we go.
Awesome. So in real life, where could somebody bump into James Dalman? What's on your calendar to be present at? I know you were just at Prestige Conference this past weekend. You said you had a good time there. What else are you going to be attending this year, locally, nationally? Where?
Man, I don't know. I'm taking it day by day. The WP boot camps is really where I'm going to focus all my energy and money at. If we get the funds in there, that's where I want to be because that's where I can make the biggest difference. It might be at the Prestige Conference in, when is it, April, May, whatever it is. In a few months, they're going to have, Prestige Conference 3, so we'll try to get out there. And I don't know too many other conferences. I'd go out to Loop Conference because I've heard it's going to be really killer, but I wouldn't understand one thing that they're talking about. So I might make it out to a WordCamp or two, but I don't know which ones. Actually, I do know. WordCamp, what is it, Columbus, I'll probably be at because we might do an event for Happy Joe the day before or after that, as well as WordCamp Austin in October. We're working on something.
All right. Well, we encourage anybody watching to talk to you if they can attend those events as well. Do you participate very much in any local communities in your area, any meetups or other organizations?
Say that again, sorry.
Do you participate very much in anything locally in your area, any meetups or other events?
You know what? I need to do more of that, and that's things I would encourage people to do, but I haven't. I pretty much sit behind his desk all day long except for when I'm, working out or playing with the dog. So, that's one of the things is, you get busy doing the stuff, and then, you look up at the clock, and it's midnight. So definitely need to get out of the house more often.
Yeah. Well, that goes for all of us. So, all right. So here's another question. Who would you recommend that we invite to have on the show some point in the future?
Well, I don't know who's been on the show, so I'm going to say 2 people that I thought of for that question. Has Pippin been on here yet?
Yes.
Oh, well, crap. Corey Miller?
Scheduled for 2 weeks from today.
Jeez, okay, Corey Miller, because that guy, he was talking about on Twitter, he's not really smart, and he's all been lucky with business. And, I've worked with the guy in the past, but that guy is smart. He built a team around an idea and led it to an amazing business. So, Corey's a real cool cat. If Kiko hasn't been on there's another guy, Kiko Duran. He needs to be on this show too. He's got a lot of interesting stuff to say. So, other than that, I don't know who to promote.
Kiko was on just a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
So
you already snagged everyone. So I can't make any recommendation. I got to think of someone abstract. Someone that no one would think about.
Okay. Well, great suggestions anyways. Thank you for that. So here we're down at the end, and what else would you like to just share with anybody in conclusion, final thoughts? What's going on right now? What do you want the takeaway for the day to be?
I think if anyone's got any business questions, I mean, come on, really want to stop after an hour? We got WordPress business questions to talk about, so come on, bring them, man. No, but if you guys got to go, I understand. I think the thing is, if you got to leave right now, is if you got an idea, whether it's a nonprofit or WordPress business or even anything not related to WordPress or nonprofits, if you got this idea that you're passionate about, and I hate this saying that everyone says, follow your passion and the money will follow. That's a bunch of crap. You can have a passion and never make any money at it. But there should be a purpose in your life, and so if there's something that you love that you've been thinking about doing, don't think about the money, don't think about the failure, all that kind of stuff, because you're going to fail no matter what. Failures is what make us stronger. But go out there and do it. It's the same thing as leaping to Happy Joe. I don't know whether it's going to fail or it's going to be hugely successful. I believe it's going to be successful, but it's something that I had to do regardless. So if you got that idea, dream, just like with Render, you guys are talking about launching plugins and doing stuff like that. Didn't know how it's going to happen. You got to get out there and do it. You got to launch. You got to take those ideas. Don't try to be a perfectionist. Get out there and launch it. See what the world says and fine tune from there. But go for it, man. Life's too short to sit around and dream.
James, I love it. That's very inspiring. And
to wear pants. Life is too short to wear pants.
High five on that. Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like you are someone who has absolutely got to get back on our calendar again, because we just scratched the surface of all the things we want to talk about. I know you've got a lot of history in the WordPress community, a lot of stuff to say otherwise that I think would be super valuable. So if you don't mind, we're going to talk calendar afterwards, so fans of the show can look forward to seeing James's face on this program once again.
That's awesome. Right. I'd love to be on again. I feel bad because I really want to talk about WordPress business stuff and not all about Happy Joe and myself, so I feel bad. So I owe you guys. So if you guys get me on the show, I promise I won't talk about Happy Joe, and I'll just talk about how to build your business and all the good and the bad and the ugly in the WordPress community.
Oh, I want to talk about that. So yeah, we're getting you back on the calendar. All right.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, I want a commitment from you on live air so that I can come back and call you out again if you fail on me on this one.
What kind of commitment?
Are we making this contact?
He's getting the helmet. Oh.
Do you really want a commitment from me? I mean, I'm the guy that carries a machete around. So, I mean. So you want some bad news. You will have a commitment that we will connect next week, and yes, and then you will say, these are the 3 things I need from you, and I will get them done.
All right.
You've heard it on the air here. Or I'll let you smash me in the nuts the next time you see me. There you go.
It's going to be all over Twitter. I'm not flying back to the States just to do that, but it's going to be all over Twitter if I don't hear from you.
All right.
All right.
Well, James, we're so grateful that you came on the show. Thanks a lot for taking time to talk with us.
Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on here and let me just ramble on, man. It's been awesome. I appreciate it. And you guys are rocking it out. Keep doing the great stuff that you're doing. And thanks, man. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. We wish you all the best.
2 thumbs up for military veterans. You got to do the double thumbs up, guys.
Woo-hoo. You don't have to do them like this for the logo?
You got to do them like this. Well, I guess you could do it like this if you want. Who's got the best thumbs? We got a competition now. I think Kyle wins that one.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, have a good one.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
You too.
Thanks, everyone.